On this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds, we interviewed Ryan Williams of Crowdfunding Nerds, who's launched a project on Kickstarter called Starclash, based off the infamous or famous StarCraft video game series. We discuss organizing your life around your Kickstarter, dealing with nasty Kickstarter comments, and more. Let's get into it.
Game begin.
Let's go.
Or the Alliance.
Amazing.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another awesome episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. I am your host, Andrew Lowen, and I am joined as always by Sean, and we have a special treat because another one of our staff members is on with us, Ryan Williams. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello.
But you don't have your staff member hat on today, do you?
I don't own one. You want to send one to me?
You could probably make them for cheaper than I could send them, you know?
More than likely.
Yeah. So, Ryan, you are our sales, really our client onboarding specialist is what I constantly call you, because that's really, you're very good at that. You're very good at that. You specialize in onboarding humans that we can market their Kickstarter projects and everything like that. Yes.
Those listening, if you ever reach out to us, you'll be talking to Ryan. He's the first point.
Ryan's the first line of defense.
He's the bull rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy meeting with everyone and hearing about their projects and the games and the ambitions and just seeing if it's a good mutual fit for us, because it goes both ways, right? It's a partnership with between two different companies, and so there's a lot of dynamics, and it's fun to explore those with people and just meet individuals. So it's a fun job for sure.
Yeah, and when you came on board, this is a couple of years ago now, right? You
2021,
yeah,
4 years ago.
Yeah, so it was the most uncomfortable feeling for me because up until that point, I did all of the selling, if you want to call it that, from our, I brought all the clients on board and did all of the introductory meetings to see if we're a fit for one another and so on. And, as we just kind of ramped up in insanity, I wasn't able to effectively do that anymore because I had so much on my plate. And it just, I don't want to say it just kind of fell into place or anything, but you reached out or I reached out or something like that. We were talking and you had this experience selling for a family member's like fishing company or right, like boat tours,
Boat rentals. Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, it was a similar role, like explaining a lot of our services and meeting potential clients, and then pretty much onboarding them in that business sense, which was taking them through a slew of like legal forms, like, oh, if you cut your foot on the prop while you're boating, you can't sue us, and here we take a copy of your credit card and all this stuff, and trying to make it not sound like a legal presentation and make it fun for them because they're on vacation. Yeah, we've got guns in America, so
yeah,
you could lose them in a boating trip, I hear.
Yeah. Well, in Texas, that's what happens immediately. Always sadly lose all your guns on a boating trip. Yeah, so it's interesting because your experience, you were able to really teach me a lot. But the reason that I did not even interview anyone else for this position. I basically kind of cherry picked you. It was like this, it wasn't because you were the lowest hanging fruit, but it was because I believed that you would genuinely care about the people that you were talking to. And that's why it was like, I want that in my company. I don't want to try to sell as much as I possibly can. I want the right people to, that we have, that our core competencies can help. I want those people as clients. And, there are, many people that we have to turn down for one reason or another. I don't want to say many, but it feels like we turn down about 40% of the things that come in because they're not a good fit for us, most often because they're not ready or in limited cases,
or it's not as quality as it needs to be, or it's rushed. Like sometimes they come at us and they're like, hey, we launch in 2 weeks. What can you do for us? I'm like,
Yeah.
we can get you halfway through.
Yeah.
We can get you halfway through onboarding, and that would be it.
Hey, Crowdfunding Nerds, it's Andrew Lowen, and I wanted to introduce you guys to the Crowdfunding Nerds Academy. If you don't know, we have a do-it-yourself course system that will teach you how to build, excite, and prepare a crowd to fund you on your launch day, and that is our goal. I have used these systems to help raise over $30 million for tabletop campaigns, over 200 tabletop crowdfunding campaigns since 2019. I've generated over $100 million through e-commerce sales using these processes. These courses teach you how to replicate our results. They're made for the small creator. Over 150 of those people were first-time creators. These courses contain hundreds of hours of podcast discussions and tons of details that are almost impossible to find on the internet. And they have been distilled into concentrated courses that you can absorb quickly. They are designed to generate results. We hold nothing back. Visit crowdfundingnerds.com/academy to learn more, or just Google search Crowdfunding Nerds Academy. Back to the show.
I'll say one other thing is that there are people that have come that we've turned down for one reason or another that are serious enough that they actually convinced me to take them on. And so if that's you, if you're worried about if you want us to take you on one day as a client, there are just a few general reasons that we wouldn't, but one of them is sometimes I can't see the market's desire for a product. It's like if something doesn't have like a clear market fit in my head, if I can't figure out who would buy this, then I'm gonna have, as your marketer, I'm gonna have a really hard time selling it. And so if you believe that there is a market for your product, and I'm here thinking, I don't know, you can convince me. You can absolutely say, I'm doing this with or without you, and are you going to help me, or are you going to let me flounder on my own? And I'll be like, well, I can't let you flounder on your own. I'm here. Okay, fine. So that is something that you can do that I have absolutely told people no, and then people are very passionately, they're going to, they're just they kind of pull me into their world by intrigue. I'm gonna help this person, and we're gonna figure out why. Really, in the end, my job isn't to tell you what your audience is gonna do or what I have my opinion and professional position as a marketer, but in the end, my job is to get behind you as the visionary and do my marketing thing, the best I can, right? And so just I as on behalf of our company, right? And so sometimes people have told me, this is I don't think that I've told them I don't know if this is going to work, and they're like, well, I'm going for it. It's like, all right, well, the question is, do I help or do I not? And if it's that I don't believe in a product, but they passionately believe in a product, then I will always abdicate to their beliefs. So it's one thing. Now, while we're on the topic, certain types of products we don't take on. We don't take on things that are like adult themed. So anything with nudity or what do you call it? Like too
Profanity.
much sexuality, just gnarly stuff like that, like adult party games and stuff like that. Also, sometimes we'll turn down things that are just have like sloppy booby ladies and whatever. It's just like it's just such low effort. And I generally don't think the market appreciates things like that. It's not,
Objectifying women isn't cool.
yeah, well, it's just sometimes it just feels like so like low bar. It's like, congrats, you're D&D from 1980. Like this
Heavy
is
metal.
2025. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, and then sometimes we'll turn down products for, obviously, if things have not been tested, if they're like, this is the best game ever, and then it's like a MS Paint drawing, we'll turn it down. Also, if things get too sacrilegious, it kind of for me gets into like adult territory. And I wrote a book I wrote a game with the devil in it, so you really have to go far into sacrilegious, to to mess this up. But like if you have a pentagram in your game because you thought it was cool and it's not like the main piece of art and it just was like some obscure little thing, it's like a question mark in my head, but I'm like, we've taken things and marketed them. But if you're like, this is the game about the Antichrist coming and whatever, it might not be a good fit. That's
There's a game that's live right now. It's like called Summoning My New Best Friend Satan or something like that.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't be a good fit.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Sometimes we reject projects because they just aren't great fits for Kickstarter as well. So it could be like a little tuck box card game. It's like, look, it's going to be really hard to make this profitable, and we paying for our services isn't going to make it worthwhile, because you do need a sort of minimum threshold of pledges in order to make something viable for Kickstarter.
Right. Actually, what's so interesting is there was a card game, or a guy that runs or that has created a game called River Rats, and this is something that's going to Kickstarter pretty soon, where or in the next couple of months, where it is a deck of cards. It's like a deck of 52 cards, like 52 playing cards, and there's a game that's been applied, but technically you don't even need the deck of River Rats cards in order to play the game, and it's really interesting. But he was one of those people that's like, we charge, our base, our core crowdfunding runs about $3,000 split over several months, right? And there are other services we can add, like email marketing and whatnot. But the core crowdfunding thing that people would want is like a pre-marketing crowdfunding, building your email list and getting people ready for Kickstarter and all that. It's pretty expensive. And so, for projects like that, for a project like mine, there are people that have, the money. If you have $5,000-6,000, like it's going to be easy to take our fee out of that and still get, we will more than double the effectiveness of the remaining ad budget, and so it'd be fine. But I find that some people come and they're like, I have, $2,000 period that I can use to market this. And oftentimes, with a small card game like River Rats, it just doesn't make sense to have us come on and take, so much money. We would have to be so effective, and then you're only making, $20 a card game or something like that, or $30 maybe, or less. It's much. In fact, that's why we crafted our courses, so to help people like that. And River Rats was something that we used. It was one of our first course purchases, because it allowed them to do what they needed to do, and we were able to help them, give them guidance, but at the same time not have to take a bunch of money for it. So anyway, Ryan, actually, you because you're selling stuff, you actually have that is like another item in the toolkit that you can now help people with. How has that been?
Yeah, originally in 2020, just to give you a little bit of background, it's actually how I met Andrew. Originally I was making a board game called Backwoods, which was like a cooperative survival game set in the 1800s, kind of like crawling around the Colorado Rockies, trying to not freeze and die from beasts attacking you and that kind of thing. And so I was developing that around the same time that Andrew was making the first Deliverance, the base game. And he had reached out. I think I reached out originally, and then he asked me after that, like, how to do some stuff on Tabletop Simulator. And we just started a relationship and a friendship, and he found out that I worked for in sales before, and that position kind of became available. And he knew that I was in the industry, designing and as an indie publisher, and then Backwoods launched. Just maybe a year before Deliverance. You launched Deliverance in 2021, right? The original one?
Summer of 2021.
And I did in summer of 2020. So, I had got about 515 backers for Backwoods, and about 260% overfunded, and then printed 1,000 and sold out. And so that is something that I've been through, and I think that it's helpful for our clients as well to the first person they meet understands their need, understands the margins, understands the difficulty and the market. And it's only becoming increasingly crowded and challenging, I think, in the Kickstarter / crowdfunding space, because there are just so many starry-eyed new designers, but at the same time, there's also more emerging big companies that have grown over the course of their several campaigns, and they're major contenders for the small fish. And the bar has just risen. So even since like I launched in 2020, like these 5 years has been explosive. Not only the growth of crowdfunding, but with that the expectation of both like backers and the delivery of these big emerging companies, whether it was CMON or others. Um, Chip Theory Games or all these others. They're making really good stuff, and they're producing very polished content with their trailers, or they have big budgets, and they get like the biggest influencers to make really good videos, and then you're kind of held to the same standard when you're just a small fish, because the backers got used to that. And it used to be you just like posted up some rough graphics and some snapshots of ideas, and your game design was communicated well, but it wasn't like beautiful, by any means. Some of them were, but not most of them. And yeah, the stakes have just gotten higher and higher. But so yeah, I kind of understand that perspective, being in the industry in that regard as well. And I'm happy to be able to give any insight I might have, because a lot of our clients are first time creators, and sometimes they have really done a lot of research, and sometimes they haven't done any. And I like to try to toss out as much free advice in the in between the information I'm giving in the 1 hour consultation.
Yeah, and you've had several experiences. In fact, you do have a Kickstarter live at the time that we're recording this, which we're going to get into. But also, you before you succeeded with Backwoods, you also ran into a failure, right? Your first campaign launch did not succeed. Is that correct?
Yeah, first time I launched Backwoods, there were just a few things that were in the configuration of the campaign that were not there, and then I think some of the stretch goals and things were not were underdeveloped, and um, there were just some tweaks that needed to be made based on feedback that I got. And sometimes you just learn by doing, right? Especially when it's your first Kickstarter. It's like, how are you supposed to know? You can do research, and you can hire experts that have experience, because you don't have any yourself when it's your first time. And that was also part of what made it the relaunch a success, was that I entreated you to help me, Andrew, and you graciously helped me to promote the game. At that time, we weren't called Crowdfunding Nerds, but anyway.
Yeah, we were just next level web doing crowdfunding stuff. Kind of got roped into that a little bit. In fact, you were within the first year of me doing. I mean, at first I was just by myself, but 2019, like September, I started with our first project, and then I actually found in our podcast this last week, the description of the podcast said something like, "It's 2020 and we've raised a certain amount of money." I can't remember, for like 22 projects, and 17 of them were first time creators. And I was like, dude, these numbers are so old. What is going on here? With this, it's like the description for Apple Podcasts or something like that. And so I updated it. It's like, almost 250 projects now. And but at the time, like, you were one of those first 20 projects that we took on. And it was something that I saw, like, okay, there's a lot this guy's doing right, but then there are some missing pieces that I feel like I can fill. And so that's kind of where that, relationship, from my side, I was like, I need to invest a little bit into this. It will help him a lot. And so, I think that I find it to be very valuable to deal with adversity in crowdfunding, because, when creators are able to deal with adversity, it's just kind of another step on the ladder. You're not falling down and going backwards, but you're just taking a journey in a different manner than someone else. And so, the journey that we're all on is one journey, the journey of life. And that's actually why I kind of titled this episode, well, in my head it's titled this way, Life, Love, and Kickstarter. But it feels like we're all on this journey of life. We're trying to do something special with a game or whatever, and you encounter adversity on Kickstarter, and you find that the path isn't so easy and straightforward. And the cool part as a backer about Kickstarter and being a part of what they call the journey, um, is that the journey doesn't always go well. And so it's like, if you've ever been to Disneyland, you go to the Indiana Jones ride, like it's intense, and that's kind of how, to me, it feels like the path of the Kickstarter creator is not smooth. The only reason mountains look smooth is because you're looking at them from very far away. And there are ups and there are downs, there are successes and failures. And I think that, regardless, like I've not personally had one of my two projects that I've, done, like I said, Deliverance or Council of the Fallen. I've not had those projects fail to fund, but I have experienced failure. I have experienced so many failures. They just, I think that when you canceled the first campaign and you came back, it's like what the show calls true grit. It's like, okay, this guy has some understanding, some experience, and he's not giving up. And I think that's an
Sure.
important quality if you want to survive on Kickstarter even today.
Yeah, there was a cool Western movie called True Grit. Um,
The old one
I
is
think
worse.
that
The new one's way better.
the new one
The
was
ones are
good.
old. Yeah.
What was the main actor in that? I forgot. He was like
Oh man,
the dude or whatever.
I know how he talks. That's like the main thing.
Yeah.
They just anyway.
Anyway, it's a
Make
good
your
movie, but you do need True Grit. And I mean, you needed it back in 2020. You really need it now. I mean, there's
Mhm.
tariffs and global destabilization, and like I said, mostly just a lot of competition and a rise in expectation from the backer base. And also over the years, backers have accumulated a lot of backer hurt and some, you know, jaded experiences that they've had with projects that didn't get fulfilled over the years. And so a lot of them are kind of on the teetering point of deciding if they want to crowdfund back games at all, or if they are just going to buy retail. And so you really have to work hard to present things well and earn their trust more than ever. Um, and yeah, you're talking about like journeys, and I know about that too. Recently, in the last few years, changed continents again, and it was a heck of a journey to even get here. I got stranded in Abu Dhabi for 40 days during summer, and it was so hot we couldn't leave the house until nighttime to go to a market and spend weird currency, and then finally landed in China because my wife's Chinese, and our now we've had a baby in like the last year and a half. So talk about just a lot of
First baby
stuff.
too.
That's first baby, a baby girl, wonderful baby Rachel, and but yeah, I mean, it's a huge blessing to have all these experiences like traveling or having a kid. I mean, some people that's just they dream they can do any of these things, and I feel blessed to have experienced it. But at the same time, I mean, Andrew's got like 7 kids. He knows it's also a challenge. And so that's the other side of the blessing is a lot
First
of
kid
hard
is the
work.
hardest, right, Sean?
But yeah,
Yeah, I'd imagine just like your first Kickstarter, it's like you don't have any idea what you're doing and how to raise it, and
It keeps you up all night.
it's like
Kickstarter plus
Kickstarter.
babies.
Feels like labor pains, although I don't know what that's like. I'm pretty sure it's not quite as bad as labor, but yeah. So a lot of things have been interesting for me, and I think for everybody to some extent. The whole world, we kind of have these common bonds now of having gone through the pandemic or something like that. That was a global thing that everybody experienced simultaneously, and the adversities and things that came out of that. So everybody's got their like obstacles and difficulties. But like you said, you just need grit, and it's a matter of weighing how much it means to you. Like, how much does your dream mean to you, or um, is it even practical? Is it the right time? I mean, these are all fair questions to ask, and it's fine if it's not the right time. It doesn't have to be a yes or no. It could be a later. And so just trying to like, I think, plan your life around, rather plan your project around your life, because your life is your life, and you're not going to just like put your marriage on pause or put your kid to the side or something that's really important, not just cardboard and plastic minis. Um, so you gotta make those assessments though.
So,
So
oh,
one
no,
thing
go ahead,
about
Sean.
your project, Ryan, is that you've really built everything yourself. It's from the ground up. This is really a passion project of yours. You really are, and I think it comes through in your page that you really care about a similar video game series, which is what inspired the game.
Yeah, the
And,
game's called Starclash, so you can guess what 1998 RTS got released on PC, that I played the heck out of and have played for 20 years since into StarCraft 2 and all that stuff. Um, and it really inspired me. It was during the pandemic. I was just about to launch Backwoods, and I hadn't even started the campaign yet. But we were locked down, and I was bored, and we were LAN partying. Me and my brother were just like trapped in a house, and we couldn't leave because it was the pandemic. And we started cranking out some games of StarCraft, and I was like, man, I want to make a new take on this, because there was a Grail game from a long time ago that's long since been out of print, and it was pretty good, but it just didn't really capture like the essence of like that zoomed in battlefield RTS experience with like, you know, I kind of always imagined, like, because there's a hex grid for in my game where you're moving and taking these actions with your units, that you're producing from buildings, and you're trying to take over the map and defeat your enemy. Like when you went to place like what was like a pylon or a structure with Protoss, which was one of the factions in StarCraft, there popped up a hex grid of like what space you want to build it, and I was like, oh, that kind of gave me an idea, and I just went from there. Um, but yeah, I hope that comes through in the page, that like I do really put my heart into it and wear it on my sleeve and try to just be transparent with people and where we're coming from. I just actually made a post today to the campaign to show a little snippet of the last project, because they should know that I've already made a game, and not everybody sees like the little link that says 2 or 3 created on a profile and then clicks it and then goes and checks out another campaign and realizes the work that you put in there and that you fulfilled it, or that it even went well. If you do have 2 or 3, maybe um, maybe it went terribly. But I wanted to include a little snippet on the campaign page, even though it's a different game, to show that Backwoods was successfully fulfilled. Show people the quality in a short, like 5-minute video, to show like this is what we executed on. This is what 500 plus backers received. Yeah, I think it's important, and it has been challenging because I'm pretty much a one-man show, except for with Backwoods, I was a complete one-man show. With this game, I decided to hire out art because I'm not good at the sci-fi art style that I was going for. More like traditional pencil and color pencil sketches and stuff like that, which worked well for Backwoods, like being an old-timey game. But besides the artists like providing black and white detailed sketches, I went in and colored them and then did the graphic design and created all the creatives on the Kickstarter page. And I mean, it's just a ridiculous amount of work. But I'm not a rich guy who can just like hire a team of 10 people and have only have to design the game. And I think it's fine though. I think it's good for our company, at least, because I've had to wear all those hats and I understand thoroughly like all the aspects involved. And so I can maybe assist people in that way in our company.
Yeah. On that front, one of the things that I've noticed, so when I first played the game, I was so excited because I'm a huge RTS fan. I love so I kind of I sucked at StarCraft 1. I was like one of the guys that built cannon towers like from my base to yours. And on minute like 30, I'd have cannon towers start, building in your base. And I just would get wrecked by, one Zergling or something. I would just get completely destroyed because I was awful. And then Warcraft 3, I got very good at Warcraft 3. It was at one point, I think the best I ever did was on US West. I hit rank number 24 in solo. Friend of mine hit top 10 using map hack. I thought that was so messed up, but I never map hacked or anything. But I was,
there was a time on League of Legends where if you had 3 monitors, you could look at all 3 lanes at the same time.
so crazy.
I don't know if you can still do that, but
Yeah, you can't.
But there was a time because I was part of an esports event, so we're displaying these laptops. We had like 3 displays. You can see all 3 lanes.
Crazy. Yeah. So and then I got into StarCraft 2 when it came out, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed how smooth it played and everything, and I actually got decently good at StarCraft 2. And and then the StarCraft board game came out and other things like that. This was I don't remember the order that all this happened in, but I remember playing it. It was like so slow. It's like, dang, this game is like, why is it a 2-hour game? I feel like StarCraft is like snappy, like 15-minute games, like I Reaper Rush, I proxy my barracks, I Reaper Rush, and I wreck you in 5 minutes, and then next game, or whatever. And it just nothing felt like StarCraft. And I've played many other games like Cloudspire, which calls itself a MOBA. It's not really, but it's a game that I build units, I advance my base, and I aim to knock your base gate open and win the game that way. And that takes 4 hours, And then there's other games. So the RTS means real-time strategy. That doesn't exactly exist in board games. The equivalent, I believe, is the 4X, right? 4X, expand, explore, exterminate, and something. I can't remember.
Experiment.
Maybe. So I have Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea to my right, and I could probably find it on that box. But
it's explore, expand, exploit, exterminate.
Exploit, yes. So and any game that I have ever played that is a 4X, personally, just never scratched the itch of StarCraft. Twilight Imperium, 4th edition, was 4X that I played. That took, 7 hours with a lunch break, and it was a short game. And most of the time, like, we've kind of come to understand 4X games are like 2+ hour epic events that you want to have, like, I want to say Gray Fox Games did Last Light, which promises a 4X experience in under an hour, but they're not trying to be StarCraft. Like, there are a lot of it's like, oh, you take over planets and you fight with giant ship battles and other things like that. But there's nothing that feels like it's micro intensive or econ, like building your economy and like producing an armor really quick and rushing and other things. Like, nothing like that was playable. Oh, nothing like that played very quick, and
Probably
what I really
40K is the closest thing you'd get to an RTS
yeah, exactly. And
on
even,
the tabletop.
I mean, I guess Kill Team, maybe I felt like maybe it was just me when I played 40K, but those games would take like 6 hours. Maybe because I didn't want to engage. I'm like, oh, the sniper, put him in the bell tower and stay away. I don't want to lose any of my units. But so I wasn't a good 40K player either.
They did do a type of 40K called 40K in 40 minutes, and it was specialized rule sets to play within a lunch break. So
that's cool. So yeah, I think Kill Team is where you have like a small squad and there's like a lot. It's like a very reduced set. In fact, I think their 10th edition is what it's called. Their rules that came out somewhat recently really streamline a lot of kind of the complexities of and the nuances, and make me very interested to give it a try again. Although that's a deep rabbit hole. That's like saying, I think I'll play a trading card game. The most powerful card in a trading card game is the American Express card. There's the credit card, right? So anyway.
There's a few games that came to mind like that kind of scratch the itch. They are different indeed than Starclash, but one of our clients actually right now, I was amazed because I found out about the game after I had already prepared and was getting ready for Kickstarter, and then I was like, oh wow, there's a game called Knee Deep in Hexes, which is very much drawing off of like kind of a fusion of Command and Conquer and StarCraft. but it's only 2-player at this point, as far as I know. It's what at least the headline on the Kickstarter was 2-player skirmish strategy. But we now are working with them till 5 a.m. games on their new project, Chorus. So it was really funny because I discovered their game and then this guy scheduled a meeting with me. I'm like, this guy's name sounds familiar. Like, oh, I was just looking at his game. And then the other one was, I think Garfield Games had made one called Circadian's Chaos Order. Yeah. Yeah, it was Garfield Games, designed by S. McDonald and Zach Smith.
Yeah, Sam McDonald.
And yeah, they also had kind of a similar vibe, but so there's a couple that have come close. But as far as people who are really looking for something that translate StarCraft in particular into something that is more of a closer fit to what you experience on the PC, I don't think it's exactly been done yet.
Yeah, and so the first time I ever played, I got so excited because I personally had in mind an RTS that I want to make, and I'm actually kind of in development. Not I have to prioritize Deliverance Council of the Fallen, but I'm calling it my game is codenamed Angelcraft right now. But it's not StarCraft. It's kind of built on Warcraft, and there are some very different. And by the way, I loved Command and Conquer. Red Alert was my fave. But anything in the Command and Conquer series is a lot of fun. What I guess to that vein, maybe Undaunted gets closest for me. Undaunted 2200 Callisto is kind of like the sci-fi version. Feels like you've got squads on the ground and you're moving them and whatnot. In some, like, gives me some of the scratching some of the itch, I guess. But so I guess that's the one that for me makes it the closest. The experience that I played that plays fast and has that 1v1 feel and whatnot. But Angelcraft is more akin to Warcraft 3, where you have a hero that levels that kind of becomes way overpowered beyond the army and leads the army, but it's really a game about hero battles with armies supporting. And so whereas StarCraft is more about your what they call macro, like your big decisions and the ability to gain resources and apply them correctly and whatnot. And when I played Starclash the first time, I actually wanted to publish that game because it was just everything I wanted to play. I saw the potential for every single thing I wanted to play. I'm like, I made this Angel game and stuff, but I would publish this. Like, this needs to exist, is what I thought. And that probably encouraged you, but you had,
It did.
I think, a really great idea. And then you decided to self-publish. We had kind of some of those discussions, and it was like, is this a good idea? And you're like, I would rather do that myself. And I just kind of want to pull out some of the thinking from that because although it was a very personal experience that I got to be on kind of on the other side as a prospective publisher, you wanted to publish yourself, and I'd love to hear some of the rationale as to why, because so many people listening to this are going to self-publish, and why did you end up deciding to self-publish?
I mean, in everything is like, as I say, hindsight is 2020. I mean, I guess I wasn't sure about how fast the development cycle would take starting from scratch again, because you wanted to reskin it in Deliverance, and I'd already invested like a lot in the art and the theming and the world building and just all this stuff that I kind of built up in my mind, I guess, like as this aspiration to make a StarCraft like board game and then to have it like themed more, fantasy style. I was like, so that was my first major hesitancy. And then the other thing was just timelines, like thinking, well, if it has to start from scratch, then I probably won't like have this resolved for, years potentially. And so that was kind of like the first initial reasons. There's really no other reason. I mean, you have an amazing track record. You have a very engaged community that's willing to back whatever next thing you put out. You've produced really good quality. And it would have been an honor to be the first other designers really. Besides, I know you've had solo designers and stuff come on for Deliverance, but like, to be like just my game that got published, and then have you on it to produce it and develop it, would have been awesome. And hopefully we can do something in the future still. But yeah, I mean, I think those were my main reasons. It wasn't that I thought that like it wasn't like financial, that's for sure, because I know that you raise a killer amount of money on your projects, and it was just that I kind of wanted to finish the vision, because you met me halfway in it already. If you had met me when it was like early prototype sketches and the rough art that I had, and I hadn't gone down the development so much and invested into the theming and all of that, I probably would have definitely just handed it over. Um, and I still consider sometimes, if someone wants to take it the way it is, I mean, I would be down. And that's part of the thing that people need to realize too. I think that our listeners, especially prospective crowdfunding creators, or maybe ones that even have already created, is that crowdfunding is not the end all be all. You can pitch to publishers, and sometimes publishers just find you. I mean, I just sat down to play a game with my friend Andrew, and Andrew's like, I want to publish this. And I was like, wow, I didn't expect like any of that to happen, you know? And since then I played with another person who's pretty decently up in the industry. He designed some of the Unmatched games, and said that he wanted to contact Lucky Duck and see if they'd be interested in it. And he just has been buried and hasn't been able to do that yet. So I was like, well, I told him already, I'm like, this is my crowdfunding date, so you should probably let me know pretty soon. And it just hasn't lined up yet. But there's always like there's opportunities, like beyond crowdfunding. I had a Chinese company, the boss from it, called the company's called Rawstone, and come to find out, like, Jeremy Howard's one of their employees. I had no idea. And I reached out to Jeremy. I was like, someone contacted me from this company. Is it like a legit thing? Because you just get a message on Board Game Geek, and there's always spam and tricks and stuff when you start to reach out and publicize your Kickstarter project. You get so much spam, like daily on Meta too. When I'm running Facebook ads, I'm always getting messages like, you're a copyright violation, we're going to take you down in 2 days, and all this stuff, or just like random messages in Russian. Or I'm like, I'm not even going to open these. I don't know what's going to happen to my computer. And so anyway, but Jeremy's like, no, this is legit. This is the boss, actually. And that means that he probably has a high level of interest in this. And he wanted to localize and publish it for the Chinese market. And so you don't know where things can go. And you don't want to box yourself in or feel like defeated too. Like, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with the Starclash Kickstarter. It's about 50% funded right now. It's been only about 2 days, and maybe it makes it, maybe it doesn't. It's quite niche. Like you have to really do your market research too. I feel like I didn't do any of that. I just wanted to make this game that I wanted to make it, and it was a passion project, and that's what allows me to design it so well, is that I'm so passionate about it. If I wanted to make a really successful game about like platypuses engineering architectural wonders, and it's a mid to heavy Euro game with worker placement and tableau building and hand management, you could make a lot of money. But
sounds like the Phineas and Ferb game.
Sure, I mean, or Everdell or whatever. Like you can make really good games that would probably do really well in the market, but I just wouldn't have had the drive and the endurance to make a game well that I'm not like really invested in. And I know with Deliverance, that's was a super important thing for you, Andrew, because of your convictions and because of where you're coming from with the game and what you want to do with it. And so, yeah, those are all things to consider.
In a similar manner to you, I actually, when I first published Deliverance, I wanted to, number one, make the game that I wanted to play. And then number two, I felt like anybody else that did it wouldn't do it right, and I originally actually planned for someone else to publish, because I thought I have a marketing business already, and to start a second business sounded really scary. When one business is still young and kind of needs to grow and all of that. So, it was something that I was intent originally on publishing, but then when I started talking to publishers, I realized that they have their own plans and they are going to change it in the way that they see fit, because if they're taking all of the risk and whatnot, um they they and they're I'm kind of in a way buying into their vision. What I thought is that publishers would buy into my vision, and that it would be kind of easy, if you will, to um just get people to buy into my vision, especially if I thought I would go to the extreme, and not only would I get people to buy into my vision for the actual game, but I would get people, I would show them, hey, I have, you know, an email list and a excited group of people that will back this, that will be your company's fans. Um, I thought that would be like the dream of a company, and I'll do all the art. I'll do all the art. I'll make sure the game is developed. It's been tested 2,000 times, and it's really, really tight and interesting. And the fan base is, roughly between 1 and 2,000 people right now that are excited. And if for publishers listening to this, that might sound really good, but then the problem is that the designer, me, um, needed you to buy into my vision exactly as it was. And I was kind of, in a way, putting myself into the CEO publisher seat. It's like, I need to make all the final decisions on this game, though. And that was the deal breaker for most publishers. Was like, and it was why I needed to self-publish,
So
because
you knew exactly how I felt
yeah,
when
yeah,
when
that was
I
me.
when I regrettably, didn't
Yeah,
sign it
when
over
you
to
hurt
you.
my feelings, it was like, oh,
And then you're
I
like,
get to do
fine,
it.
well, I've got Angelcraft. No, I'm kidding. But Angelcraft's gonna be awesome from what I've seen. Like it's
It's
taking
very
it in a
different.
very different direction, like as far as objectives or turn structure and really like the focus, like you said, the weight of what units matter. Or I wouldn't say that, but you know what I mean, like the
Yeah,
stars
yeah.
and then like the supplementary uh assembly. Whereas there is an expansion on Starclash on the Kickstarter for the Legends expansion, which does give you like those Warcraft 3 heroes, and there's like creep camps on the map that you can go through, and when they make kills, they level and all that kind of like dynamic building of the hero, and they do ramp up, but it's not really. I wouldn't say it. They're like the focus. They're kind of like equal with the rest of the army, and the objectives are also distinct. There's a lot of dudes on a map, like skirmish or war games, that are area control,
Mm.
but they're not area majority. And so that's something I really liked. I like that mechanism, and having to like have the majority within a certain patch of spaces. Um, and anyway, yeah, it's interesting to, I don't know where you want to take this discussion, like talk about game design or Kickstarters. So
Well,
you
it's
go
cool
ahead and lead
because
it.
there are so many people that are just listening to this, maybe in a similar position, And one thing I wanted to say, I wanted to kind of get into, is that when you publish something on Kickstarter, and I had recent discussions with people and publishers and others that were kind of chiming in on Facebook. The question was, if you publish on Kickstarter, are publishers no longer interested in your product? And it's kind of a deeper question than we'll probably be able to get into. It. We could easily focus a whole podcast on this. But in my view, the short answer is they are still interested in your product as long as there's a market that wants to buy it. One of the games that I always think about is The Captain is Dead by J.T. Smith, the game crafter guy. He brought his product to life on the game crafter, and then somebody actually took it and published it and sold a bunch of it, and they were happy with that. I see projects that go to Kickstarter. I see old games that have been released 10 years ago getting a new publisher and getting a new version. I just talked to somebody yesterday about what they're doing with a game that's like 10 years old, how they're bringing it back. And in fact, Jamie Stegmaier did that with Libertalia, somewhat recently within the last like 2 years. And so there's so much potential for games that already existed. I think it just requires maybe the passion behind it, to find those people. And so anyway, I think that it's a fantastic thing. So as far as your like where you're at now, so you were at 50% funded, and you are, it's been 2 days. Normally what we try to do is we try to make sure a project is funded like on the first day, on the second day. You had a good number of followers coming in, and it seemed like you hit a wall, after like the first day or whatever, where a lot of the followers that came in like didn't convert. And there's certainly choices to be made, but what are your plans to, are you going to, it sounds like you want to pursue like finishing the funding and getting the game crafted and whatnot, but like what are you going to do to make it the rest of the way? And if you end up like relaunching, canceling and relaunching, what do you like, how will you gather information to kind of arm you with choices of what to do next, to inform your choice of what to do next?
Yeah, I think there's like it's kind of like a choose your own adventure book in that sense, like because you have a lot of different calls that different creators have made in the past. Some of them just outright cancel like after the first day. And they just feel like they have a pulse on it, and it's not the trajectory or whatever is not, the kick track trajectory is not where they want it to be, or they do some quote unquote crystal ball gazing, although I don't really like that term. And they just kill it, and then they either never launch it, maybe they go find a publisher, or they relaunch it later. And that's an understandable call. And then there's other people who write it out for like mid through the campaign and see how it went, and maybe they got funded. And you just never really know, especially with AI in control of everything, and algorithms and categories and all these things that or someone might that matters, quote unquote, like some big influencer might come across the game and love it suddenly and start pushing it. And it could be on day like 20 of the campaign, and then you get like a surge. So for me, like my perspective is if this game can fund on Kickstarter, that's cool. As I mentioned before, I mean, obviously you've been interested in publishing it with Lowen Games. There's been others that have approached me for different markets internationally. I'm not really concerned about it as far as like being stressed and anxious or desperate. And I actually had a comment. I think one of the newest comments on the campaign just had this big list of things that he perceived to not like, even though he's never played the game. He's like trying to grok like the mechanisms and how the balance will work, and it's like you haven't played it yet. But that's interesting. So and that's fine. Everybody has their voice and right to say whatever they want. And one of my response was like, well, it just might not be the right game for you. Like, and that's okay. Like, not everything's for everyone, and I'm not desperate to try to make it be so for everyone. And you do you. And I'm just that's kind of how I feel about it. Is like I've made a game. I know that based on a lot of playtesting and a lot of designers playtesting it, that it according to their feedback, it's a strong game. And I'm confident that it can make its way. And if Kickstarter is the right fit, then that's cool. And even if it just barely crosses the finish line, and I get to put it in people's hands, and then maybe someone, like you mentioned, these companies, they kind of necro, to use gamer terms, 10-year-old games. I mean, like Castles of Burgundy, Awakened Realms took it and, revamped it, and now they're doing it with like a different game. Or I just saw like I didn't really like the re-themed art for like Quacks, but now they're doing like a total revision of that for like a new edition. So there's games all the time that get picked up, or another company does something with it. So Yeah, I think it's far too early to have like a for sure plan. Obviously, there's ideal. Like ideal is that everyone funds on the first day, but like you mentioned, people having grit and facing adversity and uh, adapting is important because it's not going to be everyone's experience. I mean, Andrew is because he's had such a strong background in knowing how to promote the heck out of everything, knowing how to tailor an offer, knowing how to get a pulse on the market, really being excellent about community building, knowing how to engage his audiences and posts and updates and polls and all sorts of stuff, selling T-shirts and all sorts of things, which I took a a note of with Starclash. And a lot of people have done the all-in tier. And so that's cool, but um not everybody has that skill set or a team around them. Like, it's just been me. So um it's been a lot of interruptions in life. I our mother-in-law, I'm living in China, so our mother-in-law's on the same island as me, and she fell really ill suddenly and had a big tumor in her liver, and we ended up like tending her in the hospital, and it was like leading up to into the Kickstarter, and I couldn't do a lot of preparations that I wanted to get done. And it's like, well, family's first, man. Like, we're gonna go be by her bedside. We're gonna be supporting her. And we had to also put a lot of funds towards the hospital bills, and that cut into marketing. And I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that comes up in life. And having a baby and all these things that have happened. But you just roll the punches. And as far as like a concrete plan, just I've continued to gather feedback from the community and hear what they want to see in the campaign and quickly implement those. I think that people need to be receptive. They need to be humble. They need to listen and try their best. Even at midway in campaigns, it's a dynamic thing. There's a collection of people that are there that want different things, and some of them are not in line with reality, I guess you could say. And some people just want it all, and it's like, well, you know, they're like they have like a Nokia brick phone budget, and they want like the newest iPhone or something like that. Um, but where you can accommodate people, it's like, well, why wouldn't you? And just be humble to if they have a point. It's like, yeah, this could be improved with either the campaign or the game. And so I've continued to implement those things. I've continued to post daily updates. And doing this podcast is one example, right? Like, it is, if I'm being honest, it's one way that the game might reach more people. Doing organic posts on social media constantly in different forums, and I just started up the Facebook the meta ad campaign again because I wanted to ride out the first 48 hours and see what the conversion rate would be, and it wasn't what I hoped. And I think that that again just plays into having like the time and a team to if I had been able to nurture my email list more throughout this last month or so when things really was like getting chaotic in my life, then maybe more of them would have converted. Um, and I think that that's something that Andrew's done really well is like really build up the hype and the trust both simultaneously through regular newsletters that highlight just the best of what's being developed and being transparent and doing kind of developer blogs and reveals and that kind of stuff. I think it's very very overlooked. Email marketing, it's really really important facet because we can provide you the fan base through the ads, and they can join your email list. And then it's like, okay, well, are you going to have a marketing company also help you with email as professionals in that space who know how to engage people and craft a good journey for them to go through of content? That's the right length and the right type, or do you have someone on your team? Maybe there are a lot of people who do have like someone who already has email marketing skills, but I think it's an important consideration because it is important. It's what's going to change viewers into backers on day one. And so I just you take it all in, you make your analysis, and you make your decisions, and so those are some of the things I'm doing: organic engagement, friends and family, turning on the meta ads again, doing podcasts, regularly updating the campaign, and showing good communication with people. And that's, I mean, if you have other recommendations about what I can do, I'm trying to do all of those things. Staying up till like 4 a.m. every night doing them, but you know, there's probably other stuff. I think there's always other stuff you could be doing, but at the end of the day, it's like you do what you can do.
So I know that Alex and Andrew, you both had Alex Radcliffe of Board Game Co. had a duke out, and he seemed to quite enjoy his experience. And one thing I'm really seeing from playthroughs and from my own experience playing is that a lot of people seem to appreciate the kind of snappy turns, that the kind of quick turnover of the decision space, and it kind of gets people into the flow of things. And so that's also quite encouraging and positive, right? That you have people like Alex Radcliffe, uh, you know, putting his stamp of approval on the project.
Yeah, that was cool. And I was surprised. I didn't have any expectations from him. I just reached out to him and let him know, like, I probably can't get a real prototype to you in time because the campaign's coming up. Do you want to just do a TTS playthrough? And he's friends with Andrew, and we've had him on the podcast, and he's a really cool guy. And obviously, he's a chief marketing officer over at GameFound. And what I've come to appreciate about him is that he's quite unbiased as far as like this game. He knows that it's on Kickstarter, so it's not like a maybe something that could have been prioritized by someone with more favoritism. But he made time for it. He doesn't like playing TTS at all, and he got on Tabletop Simulator with me and Andrew, and then he had a blast. And then he wanted to come back and play again, and so he's played twice, and yeah, he just really has enjoyed the game. He put it on his top 3 for March as far as crowdfunding campaigns, and awesome. On a recent video, and that was really nice of him. And then and then he gave me a quote to use, and so I think that's cool. I'm glad he's enjoyed it. And yeah, I mean, there's other stuff that if I had more manpower and stuff, I would like to do with the campaign. I think I've done a pretty good job. If you visit, I don't know if we're going to drop a link in the description or whatever, but if people look at it, they can see, and it's constantly being improved. But and I think on launch day there was not as much transparency with what pledge you should choose, or like having all the information at your fingertips in an easy way. And so that kind of, I think you have to really capture people. Like they have a lot of projects they could be browsing. A lot of them are clicking on a whim on like the new projects category or just launched or whatever, or they click an ad, and you have that window. It's like you better have it nailed down, because they're probably not coming back. Like if it's really special and it's shiny and catches their eye, and maybe they'll check back later. But if they can't easily make that decision, where they're just like, yeah, this is in budget, this is what it includes, it's easy to decide, it's presented well, I feel like I can trust it, I'm going to hit the pledge button. If they step away from that, your chances are probably like 10% or something like that. They're going to ever crawl back to your project with all the other short form video and ADD that people have, and stuff on the radar. And so I think that that was something I could have improved on, and there's still some things that need to be improved on with the page. I have a really nice how to play video. It encapsulates exactly how to play in just 17 minutes. I have Andrew's 1v1 with Alex Radcliffe. I have a 2v2 playthrough video. But I don't have like GIFs or like things really breaking down gameplay visually on the page. I have descriptors, but yeah, there's stuff that still should be there and should have been there. But as I mentioned, when our mother-in-law got sick, we just had to up and move on a week's notice. Thankfully, the lease was just about to be renewed, and we just told the guy like, "Hey, sorry, we're actually not going to be able to live here for another year. We've got to move like 250 kilometers this week and get down to where my wife's mother is, and we're just gonna, be living in her hometown to be nearby my mother-in-law, and just take care of family." So, there's a lot of things that barge in sometimes in life,
Intense.
and interrupt what you thought was going to be your schedule, and the things you thought you could get done. You're like scrambling to do. And but anyway, yeah, the page is in a pretty solid state now, the campaign is, and new onlookers can find most of what they're looking for. And the other stuff is going to be coming either later today or tomorrow, and then it'll be all squared away. And anyway, I've talked long enough. John, what's good with you, bro? I haven't heard much from you today.
Well, I'm just. Do you have the rulebook on the page? I'm just trying to find. I don't know if I'm missing it. That might be a good idea.
It's another thing. I need to get the rulebook and the TTS link up there, and it was one of the things that is on the list for like very next, because that's certainly something that people like to see. And I think it's fine too. Like I was just looking at another really cool war game called I don't even know how to pronounce it, Soria or something like that. And they had mentioned, and I looked at their manual, and it wasn't very impressive, and you could tell it wasn't finished because it was like 9 pages long. But they mentioned that they're just like, this is a work in progress. And I think like sometimes as creators, we're perfectionists. I know that I am. And it's like, I'm holding this tight to my chest until it's like ready for the world or whatever. It needs to be my perceived level of readiness. And it's like, no, people just, there's some mandatory things that you kind of need on a page now that people expect. And a lot of people, I mean, there's two different kinds of people. They watch how to play videos or they read rule books. And Andrew bridged the gap well with, and other companies do, where on the rule book, there was a QR code. You could scan it and say, don't like rule books, scan and watch this. And I remember seeing that in the Deliverance manual and was like, that's a nice idea. But there's people who just really want to read a rule book. And so, yeah, that's definitely high up on the list to get up on there.
Yeah. Another thing I know that Andrew did with the first Deliverance campaign is he kind of ran, like, it wasn't a tournament, but it was a challenge where if someone defeated the game at the highest difficulty level, they got a title in the Discord. Maybe do you have any plans of running like a tournament? Because I felt like this is the perfect time to like run a Starclash tournament and give out some titles to people who are kind of interested in even wanting to test it out.
That's a good idea, because the TTS is totally there. I mean, obviously Andrew and Alex just played it and had a good old time. And it can facilitate some great experiences. And there have been a few people in the comments that have asked about, possibly being able to play test it and whatnot. And so yeah, maybe having like some sort of contest or something, where maybe they can get like a free add-on or whatever it might be, the prize might be. But it would be pretty cool to do something like that to get more people, like backers, actually tasting and seeing like the coolness of the game. Because like one of the most recent commenters pointed out, he's making all these far off observations, but it's like if you get a few backers who've actually like played it, and then they're like, wow, they're really invigorated and excited to share it, and are telling the other backers like, no, this is really good, like I was just playing this as part of the contest, and or maybe they say it sucks, but anyway, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is so the guy, it's funny because the one that wrote like 7 different points, it's very uncommon to write such a long current thoughts, and almost feels like a BGG review before he's actually played the game. And it's funny, but he comes up with a lot of points, and I have people like this that will just write like paragraphs on stuff. It's like, hey man, some of this is pretty far out stuff, or uneducated and whatnot. But I actually find that, so what I have come to decide, maybe some of it I'm reading in positivity where there is none or whatever, but I think it's a good way to take it. And I try to teach my staff, my support people for Deliverance, and on that side, to take it the same way, where an objection. So this guy gave you some objections. Those are buying signals to me. So buying signals is a totally synonymous with the word objections when you're talking about sales and things like that. So when I'm trying to, I don't know, sell a car or whatever, you're like, well, I have my family. Will it fit my family? And you may not have even asked the question, but you may have said, well, I have a lot of members of my family. And then that is when, what you're telling me is that you need a car that will fit your family. And it's like, actually, did you know that this car has 2 back doors and a whole seat with lots of room and whatever? Like, that's just, I'm basically, as the buyer, I'm telling you where I need you to take me next. And so, like, for example, this guy's like, he complains about the rule book. I went there, I found the comment. Went there.
Oh, he already canceled though. So
Well,
I can't find the comment.
no, I see it. I see it. So, he says no rule book presented, and that's fine. Like, when the rule book goes there, what you're going to do is you're going to not answer his question. It's really more about the people that might have the same challenge or the same problem, that you're going to solve their problem by, putting the rule book in and whatever. So,
No, yeah, some of his points were very valid. It just sounded like half of them were a lot of presumptions based on not having ever played the game. And actually, in an earlier comment thread with him, I had addressed all the same points, and then he kind of brought them back up again, which is fine. Like I said, I mean, it's an open forum. People can say whatever they want, but I kind of feel like, okay, I've already answered these exact same concerns that he addressed before gameplay wise, and then he's kind of still like saying the same things. And then he mentioned like wanting to try to find someone on TTS to play with. I actually had offered to meet him myself and play on TTS, and I don't know why he felt that he couldn't find someone, because I was like, what time can you play? And then he could just know for sure, and put all these like assumptions to rest. But so at the end of the day, it was just like it sounded like, yes, some of them were very valid points, like the rule book, or where is that? I'd like to have a look. Or some of the other things that he mentioned were like things I actually agree with totally. But there was enough there where the bulk of his comment was like stuff regarding the gameplay itself that's like the backbone of the game that's just not going to change. Like, I'm not going to go and change like the turn structure or the flow of play or the rules for one backer, like, it's, the game is what it is. And so I was just letting him know, like, well, it could not be the game for you, and that's okay. And clearly it wasn't in his case. And so, I mean, that stuff's going to happen. I think, did you have any sour comments in the Deliverance thread?
So many.
Do you have anybody cancel their pledge?
Yeah, I've had people cancel their pledge for dumb reasons. Like, for example, like recently, I've talked about the tariffs, because that is a tangible thing that really does impact the pledge, or the crowdfunding campaign. And I'm like, here are the options, and I framed it in a really positive way. Like, these are the options that we have before us, and these are the ones that I'm considering using, going down this route. And regardless of any way you slice it, the 20% tariff is a negative for any Kickstarter campaign that's trying to make its way right now, because it's 20% higher manufacturing cost in China. And whether that is fixed because we have more money in the US for whatever reason, like, I don't know, I tend to, I'm sus about the government taking 20% and saying that I'm gonna be better off because the government took it. I don't trust the government very much with I'm one of those libertarian types. So anyway, like, let me alone kind of thing, and I'll do it better than you. So I think that it really is a thing that impacts crowdfunding campaigns, and you should address it. But I've had backers that were like, "Oh, you're so partisan with your, your opinions on the tariff," and it was so obvious that, like, I've had people on both sides of that. Like, I voted one particular way, and you're never gonna know what way I voted because my vote, but I had people on both sides, people that I voted for the person that were upset at me, and people that I voted against the person that were upset at me. And it was like, you just can't win, with some people, and you shouldn't try to win. But what you can do is you can always take a kernel of truth from what it is that they said. And it's like, okay, there were, the dissertation that you wrote me, the 7 points that you wrote, one of them had a kernel of value. And then, like one of the things the guy said in your case was like, I'm not a fan of people that rate their game 10 out of 10. It's like, you know what? I rate all my games 10 out of 10. And I say, I am the designer and I rate this game a 10 because I'm so proud of it. And you should. And, screw those people. They're idiots. And that's it. Like, what are we going to say? Like, I need to be more humble. I need to humble brag and write my game, rate my game a 7. It's like, no, I'm going to either not rate the game at all because I'm afraid of idiots like that will criticize me, or I'm rating it a 10 because this is the game I legit want to play and it's my rating system. And, if you have a problem with that, then kick rocks.
You're a user on BGG like anybody else and they allow it. So it's really just according to what the system they've set up. And I feel like that's kind of more of like I can understand that people might feel that way. And I respect this guy and anybody who wants to say anything on any campaign, as long as it's not just like straight trolling and insulting people for the sake of it. It's like I think he had some valid points, and but kind of to your point there too is like, I'm not going to grovel for someone's pledge or whatever. Like, it's not my job to be like desperately pandering, to people. And I've already displayed the heart of what the game is, and they can see playthroughs, they can see the rule book is not there, but they can see the rules in a how to play video if they want. There's enough there where obviously he had a good vested interest. Like you said, it is kind of a language of someone who maybe was still interested in buying. Because he's like, he wanted to be convinced to buy it or something, but it fundamentally is just not that's what I was saying. It's like, it's fundamentally the things that he wanted in the game are just not there, and they're not going to be there. So I was just letting him know that it's like, might not be the game for you, and that's okay. That's like all I said to him, because like the fundamental, framework of the game is not going to change. I'm not going to just go adjust it for one person, because then there will be 10 other people who didn't like that change. We're like, I liked it the way it was, dude. What are you doing? And now all the reviews that you had or whatever are discredited because now you've changed what the reviewers saw, and so it's like you're just chasing a carrot on a stick or something. And it's like, yeah, it is what it is. Some people will feel out any given offer, whether it's on crowdfunding or retail. They'll do the research, they'll come to their conclusions, they'll have their opinions, and that's totally valid. I mean, this guy's cool, cool. That's fine.
Well, Ryan, it's been a pleasure to chat with you. Where can people find out more about Starclash and what you're getting up to?
They can search Starclash on Kickstarter and they'll find it there. I'm sure that we might have a link in the podcast description. I'm not sure, but is that going to be there, just so I know?
Yeah,
sure.
It will be.
Okay, yeah, so you can, if you're listening, then you can just click on over there and check it out. And it's a journey, and I'm happy to be on it with everyone. And so hopefully we can fund it and get it into people's hands, because I believe in it, and Andrew enjoys it. And no matter what, it's cool as creators that we're just making the things that we're passionate about. And you do your best and have that grit that Andrew is talking about, because that's super important, like that resilience and that determination, the endurance. Because whether a game works out on Kickstarter or crowdfunding in general or not, there are other paths forward. And so anyway, that's all I'd have to say about it.
Well, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast, Ryan. What is it, like 1 a.m. over there right now at the time of this
About
recording?
midnight. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to have Robot Richard send us on out.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. For more resources, articles, and to listen to past podcasts, please visit us at crowdfundingnerds.com. And if you have a crowdfunding question, we also have a page on our site where you can send a message directly to us. Please visit crowdfundingnerds.com/question. And if your question is a great question, we may include it in a future podcast. Thank you all again for listening to this week's episode, and we'll see you next week. Stay nerdy.